I'm going to show you a couple of scallop designs today, but I joined a minute early because it's been a while since I've done a YouTube live. And I'm trying to see. Oh, good. It's showing up. It's showing up. I'm trying to make sure I can see the chat and do all the things and have the camera lined up and all of that. So I'm going to give a minute for people to show up if they can. You'll have to forgive my dogs who like to be in the room with me, but sometimes they will bark. Let's see. I think it's gonna go okay. Let me see. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to see the chat. Make sure my volume is down. Next to me here. Oh, it's letting me type. It's letting me type something in the chat. So hopefully people can see that. And we'll get started here in just a sec. I'm not going to answer anything in the chat. All right, 5 people watching. Excellent. Hello, everybody. If you know how to do the chat, definitely ask questions. I'm going to rotate this a little bit so hopefully my little corner iPad there goes off screen. I can't move it anymore off my desk. So I apologize in advance if any dogs bark. Oh, yay, I can see the chat. I'm also trying to get this adjusted just right now that I can see the live. It looks different than what's on my screen. Hi, Leanne. Hi, Susan. Can you guys hear me okay? I don't have my mic plugged in because I think it might be better that way. Let me see what glasses I have on. I think I can see the chat pretty well. It's a little far away for my reading glasses. So I rewatched the lesson I did on Instagram Live for the more complicated version of a scallop design, and I'm really happy I'm redoing it because if you were able to catch that lesson a while ago, we kind of figured it out. It's kind of a combination of 3 lessons, 2 or 3 lessons in Instagram Live or Instagram. So it's now in IGTV or videos or whatever they call it. And so then I finally just recorded a condensed version, but in my head when I was recording the condensed version, I was actually in my mind thinking, okay, I'm just going to explain it real quick one more time. And I didn't really do it like a tutorial from start to finish for someone who hadn't seen the other 1 or 2 videos that were prior to that. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense without watching the other videos. So this one's not a complicated one. So I'm going to show you something like this first. I'm not going to do watercolor look or anything right now. We're just going to keep it simple with circles. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So if you're interested in repeat patterns, this is going to be a good lesson for you. So go ahead and start a square canvas. I use 10 inches by 10 inches or 12 inches by 12 inches with 300 DPI. So any canvas is good. If you have special textures on your canvases, you have to make sure those textures are also repeat patterns or you can't use them. I do have a free download for newsletter subscribers. That's the negative painting canvas that is a repeat pattern. So if you want to go grab that, just sign up for my newsletter and you will have access to all the old freebies. All right. So we're going to do a very, very basic scallop first. And to do that, you just need to, we're going to put some guidelines on here. So go to the wrench tool and canvas, drawing guide. It defaults to the 2D grid, edit drawing guide, and just bump the size up to max and tap done. And now you have a 2D, or just the lines for the center, vertical and horizontal. So also, I'm just going to show you really quickly for doing just a basic circle one. I'm going to show you just super quickly. Get the monoline brush. Mine looks bigger because I adjusted it, but go to the calligraphy section and get the monoline brush. And we're just going to do a super simple, pretty skinny line, any color you want, and make a big circle and let it hold it there so it snaps, and then put your finger down so it snaps to a perfect circle. And make sure it doesn't go off the edge at all. And then you can tap on it, and if you have snapping on, so tap snapping, once you've selected it, tap snapping, and I keep my distance at max and my velocity at 5. You should be able to easily snap it so that you see gold lines in the center. If you want it to be bigger, go ahead now and make it bigger. Oh, that just snapped to the maximum size, filling the screen, which is also fine. For this example, I'm gonna make it a tiny bit smaller. And now it's gonna be harder to snap to the center because it wants to snap to the edges. And that's where the distance comes in. You can turn the distance down and you should be able to find the center more easily because the snapping is in smaller increments. So it's not just going boom, 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 back and forth. So make sure, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but make sure you have the gold lines in the center so that that is centered. Although you do not need to have everything centered for this project. So I am just doing super perfect circles, but you do not need to have perfect circles. The only thing you need is to make sure that nothing is touching the edges, nothing at all. If you're just joining, we're just doing a super basic scallop design first before we get to the complicated one. So this is scallop repeat pattern. So make a circle, doesn't have to be perfect, just don't touch the edges. And you need to have corner marks. So you do need to have ink, paint, whatever you want to call it, pixels on all 4 sides because we're not going to be using the background. We're having all our work be separate from the background. And because of that, we need Procreate to select the entire canvas size. So having ink to all 4 edges, doing corner marks on opposing corners, is how when you press the selection tool, if you see the dotted line now, that's how Procreate is going to select the entire canvas size instead of just selecting to where the edge of the pixels are on that layer, or where the outermost edge of pixels on that layer are. So if you didn't have the corner marks, the border would be around the circle itself. But we need the whole canvas size. That's really important. All right, so for super basic, I need to keep in mind which lesson I'm doing because I was actually just practicing the more complicated one. Okay, so we have this one circle with our corner marks, and we're just gonna duplicate it a couple times. Try 2 times for now. This should slide pretty easily, even with our other layers on. So we're gonna select it, and I bumped snapping distance back up. We're gonna just slide one down to one corner so our gold lines are in the middle. Select another one, slide it down to another corner so our gold lines are in the middle. And as you can see, the edges here are repeating. So this one's going off the edge over here and it's coming back onto the edge over here. That repeats. This one though, down here, doesn't repeat up here. So we need to make that happen as well. So we need to go back to our basic circle that we did and duplicate it a couple more times. And we're gonna take one of those. All of these have corner marks. We're gonna slide one up to the other corner. We have gold lines in the middle. And we're gonna slide one up to the other corner too. My gold lines are actually up here for this one. And I have a gold line over here and here. So that works. If you're worried, turn off all the other layers and you'll get the gold lines where you want them. So make sure you always deselect so you don't accidentally nudge your selection. All right, this looks like a mess right now, so let's clean it up. We only need, for these top two, we only need this little bit right here. So let's see. And this is, okay, yeah, this is just kind of a guide that we're gonna use. So to make it a little bit more simple, let's turn on one at a time. So we have the circle, and then we have the bottom two. So we have this one. We're going to clean up the big circle where it goes underneath this one. So I'm going to the big circle, selection, freehand, and I'm just going to grab, I'm carefully grabbing that piece of the circle. Oh, you hear my dog snorting, and just sliding it right off. Now let's turn on this side. I wonder, actually, I think I might need to get rid of that spot too. I can't remember now. It's been a while since I've done this. So go to the big circle and carefully grab this piece and slide it off. You can get rid of corner marks now too. So this corner mark is on this one, so I can just erase it or just select it. All right, and now let's go to the top two pieces right here and here. So on this one, we actually need to get rid of most of that piece itself. All right, so select that, and we're going to get rid of almost all of it, except for that one little piece, because that's where this one comes down. We do need to get rid of this little cross part here. So let's go back and get rid of that. So I'm selecting the big circle and getting rid of that piece right there. It's much easier if your circle was fit to screen from the very beginning. But then this is a good way to kind of learn how to troubleshoot some of these things too. All right, so now we need to get rid of most of this one. So select that layer and get all of it except for that little piece right there. We still have this one corner mark up here, which is on this layer. Okay. So that was a little complicated, but basically what you need to know is wherever the things go off the edge, you need to make sure it's repeating. So this one repeats over here, this one repeats up there, this one repeats up there. If you were to turn the background layer off, you could 3-finger swipe down. You have all of these different layers. You need to probably, if you had different colors going on, you would need to be able to rearrange the order of these layers so that the little end pieces kind of hide behind other layers and things like that. So keep your layers, you could group them like that, but turn the background off and just 3-finger swipe down and copy all. And then you can turn the background back on and go to a new layer, turn your group off, 3-finger swipe down and paste. And now you have all of that on one layer. Because you have ink all the way to all 4 edges, 1, 2, 3, 4, you don't need corner marks. You can just duplicate this, and we're going to check our pattern by making 4 of these, selecting all 4, and shrinking them down. So snapping is still on, and it snaps right to the corner, right, so that it's just filling one quadrant. And then you're going to select one layer at a time, or whatever works best for you, and move one to each corner. So that's a basic scallop design with no overlapping. And this one would be a little tricky because if you look here where our crosshair is here, if you had a design going on in here, that design would need to stop there, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse those. That's this little wedge right there. So if you had a design inside Let's pick a pretty color here. If you had some sort of design in here, like that, you wouldn't be able to go down here off the edge with it to come all the way down into that little gap. Unless you really know exactly how to do repeats that do, it's just much more complicated. I do have an advanced repeat pattern class on Skillshare. So I don't want to go into all of the complicated bits for this lesson, but you can do all sorts of designs inside these scallops before you do your repeat, anything you want. If you want to have one design that is in, so if I turn this off, if you want to have alternating things like have the, have that red here, but then maybe have a different color here so that it's kind of checkerboard looking. So it would be like this, right? Checkerboard. The only thing you need to do to make that happen is when you're back at this stage, have your one that you're doing, design one color, put your corner marks on it, and duplicate it 4 times and push them into the corners. Oh, I'm pushing it even though, okay, so it's not wanting to go, I need to turn off other layers. So I'm going to turn off all these layers. So push it into the 4 corners. Make sure you get your gold marks. I'm going to do this really quickly. If you're having a hard time getting it to snap right in the center, just turn off all your other layers, even the other duplicates, and do one at a time. Then you can merge those together and get rid of the corner marks that are in the center. Right, so now you have the red in the corners and you can do the green here. When you do that and then you duplicate this, it will look like a checkerboard design, just like what we did up here. One thing about having the background separate from your design is now you can change the background to whatever you want. So that's most of my, actually probably all of my repeat pattern classes all keep the background separate for that reason. I'm just going to look and see if there's questions. Oh, nope. Okay, good. Feel free to ask questions. So that one ended up being a little more complicated because we started with a circle that didn't fit the whole entire canvas. If you start with a circle that fits the whole entire canvas, so you draw a circle, put your finger down to make it a perfect circle, and then select it and do fit to canvas, then it's super simple. You just push one into each corner, push one duplicate into the 4 corners. So you have to have all 4 corners. The reason why you still need the ones up here is because there will be just a teeny tiny spot where you need to have some duplicates up there. All right, time for the more complicated one. That one wasn't the complicated one. I feel like I need to turn my screen brightness up. So I'm going to show you a picture of the complicated one. So this is something you can do with what we just did. One thing I did differently with this one is I didn't draw the whole circle. I drew one section of a rainbow. Let me see if I have that. I think I pulled it in. Where's all my repeat patterns? So I just drew one section. So I had my guidelines. I drew a basic guideline so that I knew where to draw my one section. And I just drew this one section of my scallop design. And then I put my corner marks on and I did the repeat. So I have one down here, one up here, down here, one up here because there is a dot that goes from here to there, and then one up here. So I pushed a whole design up there and a whole design up there because there is some overlap there. So that's all that one is. The reason that's not complicated, and this one either, is because there's no overlap in the scallops themselves. There's these full rainbows, the full arch of the scallop are completely separate from each other. The overlapping one, like this one, where this green, all of these are overlapping right here in all of these little spots where they meet, that makes things much more complicated. So let's go ahead and do that one really quick because I have an example right here. Well, I'll go ahead and show you the example. So for that one, you might want to write the steps down, or you can just come back. This will be on my YouTube, so you can come back to it. Oh, my purple is showing up way differently on screen. All right. Okay, so for this one, I'm just looking to see, yep. For this one, I'm gonna show you how to do it, again with the straight circles like this. So pick a color, pick a monoline brush. Again, it doesn't have to be a monoline brush. I'm gonna go with a bigger size this time. And I'm gonna make a big circle. Put my finger down. It does not have to be a perfect circle. Gosh, I'm gonna go ahead and fit to screen. I'm thinking that it probably doesn't even need to be a circle. Like it could be an, it definitely could be an ellipse if you wanted something off the screen to come down more, but just to keep it super basic because it's already complicated, I'm gonna do a circle. Let's see, how about this light purple? Oh, I'm on a different layer just so I can move it. Put my finger down. I'm just gonna try to eyeball it. Oh, well, it snapped to the center, which is nice. So I have the gold lines. It doesn't have to be centered. The example I just showed you had all of the circles kind of all off to one side. It was just something fun that I thought of. I'm on a new layer, a new color, a new circle, snapping it. Maybe make that one a little bigger and then center it again. It's funny, I'm only seeing the gold lines out here and not through here. So Procreate's kind of weird like that. All right, so just get your basic circle down. I'm gonna go ahead and group these layers together so that I can show you that this can be done without combining layers, so that you have the flexibility later if you want to change these colors, you can do that. But I do want to work with this on one layer, so I'm just gonna do what we did before and turn the background off. 3-finger swipe down, copy all, turn the background back on. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this group off, and I'm gonna paste this onto a new layer. 3-finger swipe down and paste. So now I have that onto a new layer. It's still separate from the background because we turned the background off when we did the copy all. Okay, so I have all of those on one layer. And this is where the tricky part comes in. So I'm kind of zooming out a little bit because I'm gonna select it and I'm gonna drag down from this blue node. Oh, not the gold. Whoops, I just rotated it. I'm gonna drag down and I'm gonna change the size, and I'm looking at my pixel number and I'm looking at the edge over here and how much that outside is going off the edge. That's going to be kind of how much things overlap. So if it's just a little bit off the edge, it's going to be a very little, not very noticeable overlap. If you come down pretty far and there's a lot going off the edge over here, it's going to have a bigger overlap where those scallops overlap. All right, so I'm looking at approximately what dimensions that would be. So this is around 4,000. Now I started with a canvas size that's 3,000 by 3,000. Sorry, I think I nudged it, so I needed to undo. My canvas size is 3,000 by 3,000. Yours might be different, right? So just look at approximately what number, get a good round number. So about 4,000 for me is the number I'm going to go for. But I'm going to 2-finger tap to undo to bring it back to the normal size. And if you didn't have, by the way, if you didn't have circles that fit the screen, just like the lesson we just did, put corner marks on and it'll be fine. And you can treat it like it is fitting the screen. So my new size that I'm going for is 4,000 pixels by 4,000 pixels. I'm going to deselect this. So I need to duplicate this a bunch of times. You can turn them off and duplicate them. We just need probably 7 or 8. Let's just start with 7. I'm going to leave one original just untouched down here, just in case I totally screw things up and I want to go back. Because even though we just have a very simple circle thing here going on, if you had some really beautiful art that you spent a lot of time on, you're going to want an original to just return to in case you need it. You do have the group down here as well, so that's good. So I'm going to turn one on. And I need one that is just literally right there, but that bigger size. So we need to select it, and then we're going to tap the blue node up here. If you get too close to the green node, you're going to end up with a rotate option. So tap kind of down below the blue node, and this window will pop up and it says dimensions. If it says rotate or rotation, then you've selected the wrong thing. So all you need to do is type, it's locked, so the little lock thing is there, which means when you type 4,000, it's going to do 4,000 by 4,000. So just type 4,000 or whatever your number was and let it wait a second and it'll pop up to that bigger size. A lot of menus in Procreate, when a selection like this and there's a menu popped up, if you tap on the thing to get rid of the menu, it doesn't nudge your selection, but for this, it does. So don't tap the screen to get rid of the menu. Tap maybe the arrow up here, I think the brush options, just find a button to tap to get rid of that menu, but you still need to have your selection. So everything is still selected because if it's deselected, it's going to crop. For this particular one, we are deselecting it because we're just having our bigger scallop or circle, I guess, in this same location, this exact location, and we just want it right here. So I'm going to deselect it. I'm realizing that because I did a full circle that fits to screen, I didn't worry about corner marks. If you are new to this, you should always put corner marks on just in case. So I should have done that on my original. Just put some corner marks on. It's super simple. You might want to do it in a color that is really noticeable and different from your design so that you spot them later and erase them later. But corner marks is definitely the way to go when you are not using the background, when you're not having a background attached to your design, which none of these layers do. They're all independent from the background. So I'm going to go ahead and put corner marks on the rest of our things just so that we can have that as, best practices. Whoops. You might hear my dog snorting. Okay, yeah, oh, he's snoring. So we have our big one here. It's going to be okay. We didn't put corner marks on it, but we're just going to assume that that's going to be okay since our circle touched all 4 edges. Since that orange circle touched all 4 edges, I know that that one's actually okay. All right, so now we have our 4 corners to do. We have to keep bumping up the size of every single circle, and we need to move it in a way that's going to split it in half. And splitting it in half means that our gold lines are not going to be in the center. So watch what happens. We're going to select another normal size circle, select it, tap near the blue dot, tap your number, mine's 4,000, let it bump up. I'm just going to start sliding. I'm not going to try to get rid of that menu because it's so touchy. If you start sliding, it should work. So I'm going to cut it in half. Cutting it in half means cutting it right here where that node is. So right here. So I'm not making this dotted line go all the way to this center here. I'm cutting my arch in half right here. So once I deselect, it's going to crop right here, and it's going to be exactly half like that. All right, so we're going to move that one up. So I select it again. Now that it's cropped, I selected it again. I don't need corner marks because I'm just sliding it up, and it's going to snap right here. Let's do that one more time in the opposite direction. So I've got another one, selecting it, tap your number, mine's 4,000, let it pop to the bigger size, and slide it directly over till your rainbow is cut in half right here. So I have the gold line right here, and now I can deselect and let it crop. The reason you need to let it crop is because now when you select it again, this is going to snap right to the center, which is what we need. If you didn't deselect it and let it crop, then this is going to get placed into the wrong spot. All right, so let's see what we have. We have kind of a jumbled mess here. So we'll clean that up later. Now we need the bottom 2 corners. So let's go ahead and take one, select it, tap near the blue dot, whoops, 4,000, and start sliding that one so that it gets cut in half right here at the blue dot. Deselect, select it again, and slide it down. Whoops. And you can go ahead and get rid of that corner mark. Turn it off, get another one, select it, 4,000, let it pop up to big size, slide it over to the other direction, let it cut in half in the middle of the rainbow, deselect it, select it again. Okay, so since our corner mark was on the upper right, we don't have a corner mark on here right now. It would be good to put one on here just in case your circle doesn't go all the way up to the edge. So just put a quick corner mark up there. So now you have ink to the top, to the left, to the bottom, and to the right. Select it again and slide it down. Snapped right to the center there. And now you can erase that corner mark. All right, let's go ahead and clean this up so it doesn't get too jumbled, or it's already going to be jumbled. Where you have things overlapping, you decide what order your layers are going to be in by sliding them around so that these ends are going to be hidden and things like that. So right now, if I were to turn on these bottom 2 corners that we just did, they're on layers that are above this big one here, which is good because now I can go to this big layer and I can erase these lines that come down here off of the big layer. And the ends that aren't very pretty are hidden behind there. So that works. So that one's done. And now we need to decide, are you going to have this, the overlap be this way on top, or the overlap be this way on top? So I'll just keep this one on top, and that means I need to erase part of this one. So this is the layer that is on top already, so that works. And this layer I need to erase part of. So I'm going to select it and just erase the parts that are showing underneath there. So it's looking pretty close to done, but it's not quite, because remember we have these layers coming down up here that need to kind of finish meeting the scallop there. And those we already did, they're up here. There's that one. It looks weird because it's got way too much. We just need these little tiny bits up here. So we're gonna select that. I'm gonna keep it on a layer that it's not gonna end up on this layer. You can just erase by hand or just use the selection tool, and I'm gonna erase to here, right? But I need to tuck all those ends underneath this layer right here. So I just need to slide it down, and now they're all tucked under there. So these three are going up here. So when it repeats, they're gonna go doop, and oh, my dog's coughing, sorry. And now this one. So this one, gosh, I don't think we need this one at all. If you, excuse me, it just so happens that the size of circle we made when we bumped it way down to the 4,000, it overlapped enough that all three of these end right here. None of them go off the edge of the paper canvas. So we actually don't need the piece that would be the piece that we would use to kind of, if, let's see how you explain that. If, say, this yellow line were lower and it went down here, it would need to extend up here, right? But all of these end right there, and they don't go to the edge of the canvas, so we don't need to have them do anything up there at all. This isn't quite done yet though, because we don't have, see how this overlap right here happens? We need to have that same thing happen right here. So we have one more thing to do that. I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer that we didn't need and turn off these other layers. We have one more layer. This is probably the trickiest one. So I'm going to show you what we're doing right now. We're doing this piece right here. And sometimes we need to do it on both sides, even if it's just for this little tiny piece right here. I'm not sure about this one yet, so we'll have to see if it needs it. So we need to select a normal sized one, select, tap the blue node, 4,000. All right. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and, oh gosh, I'm just blanking on what I'm supposed to do with this. Oh, I remember. So we need to cut it in half. So we need it to crop right here where the halfway mark is. So crop it. And now I need just this wedge right here, this little wedge right here to be over here. So I need this whole thing to crop in half right there. In order to do that, I just need to put marks on all four sides. So I have marks that go off the edge down here. I have marks that go off the edge up here. And this one's questionable on the top. Nothing over here on the left. So I'm putting a corner mark here that covers the top and the left. So it's going to grab the whole canvas size when I select, and I can slide the whole thing and it's going to snap to here. Without that corner mark, it would not snap to here. And this is the piece that we need. So we can deselect it and erase. We don't need all of this though, so let's turn our other layers back on so we can see, well actually we can just turn that layer on so we can see what part needs to be erased, which is right here. And you can see I need to hide that one underneath this layer. So I'm just going to drag the order to go underneath that layer. And let's turn on the other layers. All right. Now we have this big piece needs to be erased down here. That's this layer right here. And we just need to erase these ones that kind of stick out so that it looks like that. And it looks like it looks like we do not need to have another little orange piece over here. But let's test our design. So turn the background layer off, 3-finger swipe down, copy all. Background layer back on. I'm going to group all of these together so I can turn them off. Open a new layer and 3-finger swipe down and paste. All right. I can shrink that right down to snap right in the corner, and I can duplicate it and slide into the 4 corners. You can just duplicate them all at the same time. Slide into the 4 corners and see what you have. If you need to turn off your grid line, that works too. So I have everything looks good. I think we got lucky. Our orange did not need to, it didn't overlap in the way that the other one did. So this one actually works. So you can see why it's important to have this little teeny tiny piece that we had up there, this little teeny tiny piece. If that weren't there, then you would have this little gap at the top of each of these arches here. So this one right here, if you didn't have, whoops, this teeny tiny wedge right here, what you would end up with, I'm just going to do this really quick. I'm going to turn the drawing guide off. What you would end up with is this little gap right here, right? So that's something to look for also. Hi, Brenda. So on the orange one, we didn't have the need to put the little tiny orange wedge over on that other side. Let me show you what I'm talking about. We moved this piece over to the right, and sometimes you need to do the same thing but over to the left. Let's do that just so you can see what that would look like. So you would turn on another normal piece, select it, select, oops, 4,000, slide it to the middle so it crops right there in the middle. So you're not sliding it to the center here, you're sliding it so it crops the circle in the middle. Deselect, put a corner mark on the outside. This one doesn't matter anymore. We need one on the top and the left, or the right. We already have ink on the bottom and the left. And then it will crop right there, and you have this little wedge over here. So sometimes you need to do that on both sides. In this case, so when you need to do that, it's if this orange band were to come up and come up right here, like that. That's how you would know if that was needed. In this case, this orange is completely underneath and hidden by this piece, so it's not needed at all. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure that makes sense. And then let's see, let me show you what happens if you didn't have this teeny tiny wedge up here, this little layer right here. What would happen? Paste. This is what would happen. So even the teeny tiniest bits that need to be repeating, anything that goes off the edge needs to come back onto the edge in another location. So these go off the edge. These go off the edge down here, so they need to come back onto the canvas up here. These go off the edge over here, and they come back onto the edge over here. This purple goes off the edge over here, and the orange up here. Purple, orange up there. That's the trickiest part of doing repeat patterns in Procreate, is you just really need to make sure that you're not going off the edge without intentionally going off the edge, and making sure you know exactly how to make it repeat on the other side. So this one's super complicated. The best thing to think about is, no matter what your design is, no matter how much you have to the edges or not, if you have corner marks and you duplicate a whole bunch of times, 4 times, and slide to the corners, making sure you have the gold lines, which I'm not making sure I do right now, now that I say that. Making sure you have the gold lines. You can collapse those, squash them all, and erase those corner marks now, right? There's the original design. There's that original design pushed to the 4 corners. You can do something entirely different in the middle now. And it doesn't matter what you do in the middle. It doesn't matter at all what you do in the middle if it doesn't go off the edges at all. Because all you need to do is make sure that the ones that are going off the edges are repeating everywhere they need to repeat. So all of these corners are repeating now, right? So this one went off the edge. I think I'm going a little bit. I'm stopping myself because I'm getting a little too involved. Oh, someone says, I go off the edge. Yep, nope, don't go off the edge unless you know what you're doing with making it repeat, because it crops. Well, that's a bunch of mess. I'm gonna erase that. So there's definitely a lot of ways that you can go off the edge. You can't just go off the edge like this. This won't repeat up here. Even if, no matter how much you try to draw a straight line. Let's make it really big. That's not going to repeat. So now, if I were to put some corner marks on here and duplicate it and shrink those and move one up so you can see if it's repeating perfectly or not, you can see here. It's close, but it's not repeating perfectly. So you really have to be careful when you're going off the edge. So for this one, let's see, okay, I do. This one I started out with my circle like that. Let's turn the background off. That's how I started. And I put corner marks on and I just started moving it around and making it bigger. I don't remember what size I made it. And then, yeah, I've got a lot of versions of it in here. Just experiment. It gets easier with practice. Don't expect to be able to do this type of pattern just from watching the tutorial one time and then remembering it and trying it. You're probably going to have to follow along once or twice, and then also experiment multiple times with your own to really get it ingrained. And I think it's been months since I've made this design, and I had to remind myself, I had to go back and watch what I did on my Instagram live because I couldn't quite remember how I had done it. So don't, I see a lot of people who are like, oh, always have to follow tutorials. I can't figure it out on my own. But it really just takes a lot of practice, and that is what makes it easier. How do you get the gold lines? When the snapping tool is on, you get the gold lines when things snap to the center or the edges. It just is automatic. So when something's selected, let's see, when something's selected, then this menu pops up and you can turn on snapping right here. Leanne, one who has never attempted these could really underestimate the little complexities of each design. Yes, that's true for sure. It's a fun one to know, but really only if you're interested in repeat patterns. I have a whole class on geometric patterns, so there's a lot of ways that you can do all sorts of geometric patterns in Procreate. And a lot of it is cropping. A lot of it is allowing Procreate to crop in just the right ways. And there's a lot of options. This is actually based on this overlapping scallop, right? So you can see the overlapping scallop right here. If you look at these as lines, whoops, you can see how those umbrellas overlap right there. This one's also overlapping just a little bit, and then it's also flipped. This one looks like it's probably overlapping, but my gnomes are making that hard to determine. Although I made the gnome hats based off of the main arch here. So yeah, those are overlapping also. That's so cute. But there's lots of diamonds. Here's another scallop design of just the basic not overlapping, right? You don't have to have the lines showing. You can use the lines as your guide and draw a design inside and then turn the lines off. This was my initial, so this one's a very painterly looking one, if you zoom in. That is a good example of just showing you that you don't have to use the monoline brush. You don't have to have perfect circles where we let it snap and we put our finger down and we made it a perfect circle and we fit it to the screen and we centered it. You don't have to do all of that. You just have to make sure that when you are, when we increased the size by dragging our initial design way down here, looked at the pixel number, you need to make sure that size is the same on all of your pieces as you're moving them around. And that all of your, anywhere that goes off the edges are coming back onto the edges on the other side of the canvas, very precisely. So that's basically what we did, but again, a more painterly look. This one's also overlapping. I think that's the same design as my gnome one, the same initial design. Yeah, lots of diamonds, lots of circles. The OG design is also really fun in Procreate. This is OG, I found out. I didn't know the name of that design. No more scallops. Scallop, scallop. This one is just a bunch of shapes, and gosh, if you so this one's just kind of a basic repeat. If you search on, if you're not on Skillshare, if you're on Skillshare, I have lots of repeat pattern classes. But if you're not on Skillshare, I have, it might be a fairly complicated lesson on my YouTube channel that shows the Luna moths, that shows a repeat pattern. But a more basic one, if you Google search Spoonflower blog Jennifer Nichols, you should, maybe Jennifer Nichols repeat pattern or something, or Jennifer Nichols Procreate Spoonflower blog. You'll see a guest post of mine there with a video lesson that shows how to make a very basic repeat pattern. Thank you, Leanne. If you're on Instagram, definitely check out some more lessons. I think a lesson like this is on Instagram. This is a good reason to rasterize your fonts. So I must have deleted a font. I don't know why I used a font here. Why did I use a font? Oh, because I was announcing that I did this live, and I must have done it in some sort of special font. And then I got rid of that font. So because it wasn't rasterized, and I got rid of the font, it then just defaulted some other random font. Probably not a random font, probably whatever font Procreate or iOS decides. Yeah, here's what my lesson, oh, I did there too. Oh no, well, that's a problem. Well, maybe it'll tell me what font I did. Oh yeah, okay, so I can go back and get that font now. I need to write that down. I don't have a way to write that down. I'll remember it. Here, I'll take a screenshot. So there it goes. It just, there's one in the background because I did rasterize the background layer. Yeah. So I rasterized the shadow layer back there. So I just need to go get that font again. The repeat pattern from Spoonflower. Oh yeah, Carol, the repeat pattern lesson from Spoonflower. That one's a good one, yeah. The one thing that I learned after that lesson is to be careful about pixelation. So if you have something that, oops, where's my Apple Pencil? If you have something that, let's just make let's make a little line. Make a blotchy line too. If you move things around a lot, so I'm going to duplicate this and just have one that is the original and one that is over here. I'm going to turn off snapping. When you're making repeat patterns, a lot of times you kind of go, oh, I'm going to have this over here. I'm going to make it a little smaller. I'm going to put it up here. And then, oh no, I changed my mind. I'm going to make it over here and put it down here. I think I did that a lot in that spoonflower lesson, moving those mugs around. It's a mug design. And when you move things around and deselect and then select it again and move things around, even though all I did was downsize it, when you do that a few times, I'm going to rotate it so that the two monolines are next to each other. It gets more and more pixelated every time you do it. So you can see here, I'm going to see if you can see on camera. I'm not sure you can see that so well, that the monoline, the original is nice and crisp, and this one's very fuzzy. Hopefully you can see that. Definitely test it out yourself. This one compared to this one, yeah, you can even see a difference there. I'm not sure really that you'll be able to see this on video, but there's a big fuzzy difference over here than what you see over here. So I think I read somewhere that Procreate likes you to move things just one time, and then once you deselect it. If you move things a lot and move a lot and move and a lot and move and move and move, whoops, I'm doing 2 fingers versus 1 finger. And if you just keep the whole thing selected as you're figuring out where you want this to go and then deselect it, that's considered one move. So you can do that. And then you can see here, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny bit fuzzier, but not much at all. If you're taking an original and you're simply rotating it 45 degrees, is it 45? No, it's 90 degrees. If you're rotating with the pixels going from this way to this way, or even 180 degrees, that shouldn't be as big of a deal either because of the pixels. When you zoom way in and you see the pixels, they're in a grid, right? And when you are rotating from, in 90-degree increments, it's still able to kind of figure out where the color goes in that same orientation, the vertical and horizontal grid. I don't know how to explain that very well. Anyways, this is off topic. Just be careful about rotating things a lot or moving things a lot in Procreate. All right, well, that was an hour. So if you joined late, we did a basic repeat, a basic scallop. This one was a little less basic because we didn't have our original circle going all the way to the edges, so it left these little gaps. But you just need to make sure you're pushing things up into the 4 corners and erasing the parts that aren't needed after that. Or you could use this as your guide. If you just have that as your guide and turn it down, and then on a layer above it, go, oh, I'm gonna make a little polka dot design. You know that you can do your polka dots like that, your initial polka dots, and do whatever you want in here. Being careful not to go off the edge down here. Turn your guides off and you have that design. Put corner marks on. I would make sure you're on a very solid brush for your corner marks. And duplicate and push it to the 4 corners. So you would need 5 total because you have 1 in the middle and then 1 for each corner. So that's all you would do. My snapping is off. Gold lines. Any questions? I wish Procreate would fix that. It's done. Repeat pattern. Carol, are you saying that you wished that Procreate would not crop when you deselect? There's a lot of people who find that frustrating because Photoshop doesn't do that, but I'm not a Photoshop person, so for me, I'm kind of like, I don't know, I guess I'm used to it. But I've also done a ton of repeat patterns, so I'm just looking at questions real quick. Leanne, you're making your way towards more advanced patterns, yeah. It's, the advanced pattern class that I have is stuff that I had a lot of light bulb moments on ways to make patterns in Procreate that were unlike what I ever thought I could do. Melanie saying, I had a design in mind for this sort of pattern that I wasn't getting to work out, so this is good. Good. I don't use magnetics, Brenda, because snapping is all you need to get things to snap to the corners. And you know, it doesn't matter if magnetics is on. I mean, I guess I should say it doesn't matter that it's off. I know a lot of people keep magnetics on. This part matters. So distance at max and velocity at 5. Velocity it has to do with how fast you're moving your selection when you're trying to get it to snap. So if you're moving something really, I actually can't remember, I might be saying it the opposite way, but let's say you don't want something to snap when you're moving it quickly, then I think you bump the velocity up, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's up if you do want it to snap when you move quickly. But anyways, 5 seems to be good. The distance is how close do you want that edge, the dotted border, to be to something before it snaps to the edge. So if you have 2 objects next to each other and on different layers, like how close do you want things to be before they snap, right? Close in like imaginary lines going across, right? Oops. So if you want things to be really touchy and snap, 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 snap to all these different things on the page, you would have that number be really low because you want all those options open to you. If you had a lot of different things on the page and you don't want, well, I don't know how to explain it. Okay, so here's the best right here. Okay, so if I'm sliding this down and I have the top edge of this imaginary line coming across here, how far away do I want my object to be before it's going to jump down and snap to that line? There's that imaginary line, right? So that they're lined up. The bottom of this one's lined up with the top of that one. So that's a pretty big jump from there to there. And that's because my distance is really high. If I had my distance really low, then I would be able to get much closer before it snaps. See how it's not snapping yet? And now it snaps. See how that jump is really small? So there's certain things, like when I had a circle earlier, I had a pretty big circle and I was trying to center it. Well, here it is. It's working right now. It's not wanting to center because it's snapping way down here and it's snapping over here and it's snapping over here. So if I turned snapping way down, I would be able to have more control over how this is snapping, so it's not just jumping to the edges. So now I was able to very easily get my gold lines in the center. But when you're moving a full page design to the four corners, you don't need that number to be small. You just really need it to snap right to the center. So that's why it works, just to have it really big, that have this distance max and have that a big number. What is the number if it's not max? Oh, it goes up to 50. Just some random, maybe it's pixels, 50 pixels. So Brenda's saying when it's an obvious thing you want to do, you bump it up to max. Yeah, when it's a big thing and you're moving it to another big, you're moving it in a big way. Yeah, you don't need it to be a small distance. You don't need to be super picky about getting it to line up here in the middle. This one's being picky right now because this object is throwing it off. It's not wanting to let me, I see a gold line in the middle, but I don't see one this way. Oh, sorry. So for that, I could turn it down. And now I should be able, yep. So I can get my yellow lines more easily done. But also when it's that finicky, I have a higher chance of it nudging out of position when I pick up my pencil or my finger. Oh, Carol's saying no, you wish they would fix the pixelating. I think that's just because it's a pixel program, right? It's just how pixel programs are. I just jumped subjects. Well, I'm going to let you go, guys. Hopefully everybody's going to enjoy making scallop repeat patterns, if that's not too confusing. Make some basic ones before you make some complicated ones like this one. And then just start thinking of all sorts of things like those umbrellas and the other ones I showed you. I already forgot what they were. All right, see you later.